Let's start this off with an underdog story. Throughout the 1970s, Don Bluth was a rising star at Disney Animation. Thanks to the works he did on Robin Hood and Winnie the Pooh and Tigger too, he rose up in Disney's ranks to become an animation director on films like The Rescuers and Pete's Dragon, along with directing his own Disney short called The Small One, which placed him around the same level as Walt's 9 Old Men. However, as he was getting better at his craft, Bluth was less satisfied with working at Disney. He felt that the movies that they were making, like Robin Hood, The Rescuers, and the upcoming The Fox and the Hound, did not have that same magic as the ones that Walt Disney himself produced. That, and executives at the time were turning the company into something more corporate and less creative-friendly for artists like him, along with facing some resentment from the newer animators who were fresh out of Cal Arts. And so, on his 42nd birthday on September 13th, 1979, Don and 11 other Disney animators quit the company to form their own studio. As for their first motion picture to produce, they decided to go with an idea that Disney rejected a few years back, which was an adaptation of Robert C. O'Brien's novel, Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH. And after 2 years of growing an entire team and using their skills that they've learned from Disney, they were able to create their first movie called The Secret of NIMH. And upon its release on July 2nd, 1982, it didn't do great. I mean, it wasn't a disaster, but considering that it came out in the same summer as E.T., its chances of success were... yeah, pretty much. However, over time, The Secret of NIMH gradually found its audience and became more beloved by newer generations, as many fans not only call it Don Bluth's magnum opus, but also one of the greatest animated films of all time. But what is it about these rats that have gathered so much admiration? What is the secret of The Secret of NIMH that make animation fans call this one of the medium's greatest achievements? Well, let's find out. Hey, sorry to interrupt this, but before we get into the magic of The Secret of NIMH, I would like to quickly talk about this review sponsor. And this one is especially for animation fans because an indie animation project needs your help. Yes, this review is brought to you by the Baobab Tree. This is an animated short that is inspired by the burial ceremony that is done by the indigenous people of Tanzania, specifically by the Baobab tribe. And the story is about the titular tree and a young boy who grow a bond. And as they learn about the importance of friendship, they also learn about grieving when a loved one is lost. And this is not a little project coming from a newcomer. This is from a filmmaker with years of experience producing her own animated shorts, including the one you see here called The Farmer and the Lightning Storm. Now I could go on about what's in store with this animated short, but I think the creator herself can actually do a better job to provide more information about the Baobab Tree. So to tell you more about the Baobab Tree, here is the creator, Danielle Brown.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Brown. I am the director, producer, and writer for The Baobab Tree, a rhyming story about friendship, grief, and loss that highlights the unique burial ceremony of an indigenous tribe living in Tanzania, the Baobab tribe. So, the Baobab Tree is actually meant to be a love letter to the family members that I myself have lost during its making. My Uncle Morris, my Auntie Laverne, my great aunt Amanda, and my father, who sadly passed away on the 20th of September. With that being said, I wanted to give you all a little update. I've actually created a GoFundMe, which is chock full of visuals, videos, as well as more detail on myself and some of what I do day by day outside of creating animated videos. If you're interested in seeing more character concepts and behind-the-scenes content, please head over to my Patreon, as I am always updating my community over there. So thank you all for watching, and I hope that you will all join me on this journey to help build community that supports Black stories. Bye!
With all that said, I just want to give out a huge thanks to Danielle Brown and her project, The Baobab Tree, for sponsoring this review. And if you'd like to bring the Baobab Tree to life, then all you have to do is go to the link in the description and donate to the GoFundMe campaign. So now that we're done talking about the Baobab Tree, let's get back into the review and talk about The Secret of NIMH. The story. When looking into what this movie is all about, it's actually quite simple. As much as it displays all the fantasy and danger surrounding the animals, the story is about a widowed mother going to great lengths in order to save her children, especially the one who is sick with pneumonia. It's pretty basic and straightforward, but that's all it needs to be effective. It's the type of narrative that is capable of carrying the feature's emotional core. It is very rare, especially back then, to have an animated feature that puts a mother in the spotlight, and use her devotion to keep them safe as the fuel for the film's engine. It's honestly refreshing to see this kind of story be told, since generally, mothers in animated films take the role of what is known as dead. I guess Jonathan decided to give his wife a break and take one for the team.
Oh, I never knew just what happened.
In the case of The Secret of NIMH, it not only uses that to highlight Mrs. Brisby's personality and explain what brings her into the adventure, but it reflects upon a humbleness regarding family. There is so much going on in the picture where the stakes are high, and a lot is at risk to keep all the woodland creatures protected from harm. The movie frames itself in a way that the whole world it establishes is in danger. However, for Mrs. Brisby, her kids are her world, and since they lost their father, she's willing to do whatever it takes so that all of them, including the sick one, no longer have to worry about the threats that come with being a wild animal on a farm. It's that kind of determination that makes the feature heartfelt, as Mrs. Brisby is the shining example of the courage that comes with motherhood.
Go with Andy, Drew. I've got to try and stop that thing.
Wait! You're out of your mind! Brisby, come back!
However, with a simple plot, there is a lot of room in the feature to write about. That is why the story surrounds itself with some of the most elaborate world building you will find in a film. I know I made a big statement, but the amount of depth and detail that this gets into in a relatively short amount of time for a movie is awe-inspiring. It's not the kind of picture that asks the audience to just buy the fact that there's magic and talking animals like this is some Disney flick. Using a subtle commentary about scientific experiments on animals, it presents how the rats and mice became so intelligent that they not only have the capacity to write and read, but also to form their own society, use resources, develop a moral compass to understand the difference between right and wrong, and become so advanced that they even achieved alchemy.
The children are better at it than I am.
As you follow Mrs. Brisby's quest to protect her kids, you also learn about this entire world that is hidden within someone's farm, and how a farmer's regular routine can completely alter the landscape in a perilous way. While Brisby's motherly motivation provides the heart of the feature, the world building is what gets the viewer engaged. To discover alongside the widow how the rats are developing their own civilization and the impact that her late husband left to make all that happen. It not only makes the feature immersive, but it is also able to achieve some credibility with its own explanations that it feels like it can happen in the real world, even if this is a fantasy film.
My child, we can no longer live as rats. We know too much.
I'd also like to add that another element that makes the storytelling great is the score. I don't usually talk about the music, but I cannot look past the composition by Jerry Goldsmith and how it plays a key role in setting the tone and the atmosphere of the picture. It elevates each scene by adding suspense when danger is lurking around, that mystical mystery to feel like we're about to discover something magical, and add some gravitas to the intensity of the action. What the writing achieved here is not just adapting the novel into a movie. It crafted an entire world that blends science and magic, and presents it in an enchanting and thrilling way, driven by a story about a mother going that extra mile to keep her children safe. It's the kind of storytelling that is as legendary as Jonathan Brisby himself. The animation. One of the biggest goals that the team set themselves with this movie was to bring back that classic style of animation from Disney's golden era. That kind of magic that felt like was lost when the company moved to the Xerox process to craft their films, starting with 101 Dalmatians. I wouldn't say that this animation is just like classic Disney, but this is still amazing animation that set the standard of Don Bluth's craftsmanship. One element that became a signature trait of Bluth's style is how it leans more into realism. So much so that the technique of rotoscoping is strongly used. Maybe not as dependent on it as Ralph Bakshi, but it is displayed more than in a Disney film.
We were just talking about you.
That's refreshing, Jenner. Usually you're screaming about us.
Along with capturing the realistic aesthetic, it is also to help convey the characters' acting. Sure, they can be plenty expressive with their faces, but it is also with their subtle movements that show how they feel. It avoids cutting corners so that fluid body language is an integral piece to the performance in the animation. And yet, even if the characters can move in a more human way, it doesn't avoid the fact that they are still animals, keeping the nature of their species to be anthropomorphic in a variety of ways. Some of the rats behave more humanly, while the others, like Jeremy, the Great Owl, and Mrs. Brisby, display that they're not as advanced by behaving more like their respective animals.
When we get to the Great Owl, he'll know just what to do about everything.
Owls eat mice.
But what I love the most about the animation is how it is a key factor in the film's world building. It's not just because of the backstories and the scenarios that the rats found themselves in, but it is also how the movie is the master of perspective thanks to the beautifully painted backgrounds. As it is all from the point of view of a small woodland creature like a mouse, the environment appears as massive, where a front yard can feel like a whole forest, and the farmer's equipment is a complete threat to their lives that, once it operates, the animals have to hide so that they don't get caught in the mechanism. As for the environment for their own size, they find a way to adapt by taking what the farmer left and use that for their own personal needs. And they don't do so in a comical or whimsical way. This takes it in a more serious matter, where the materials that they could find have a different function for them to display how they're adapting to their way of living.
It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen.
I'll also mention that the color palette adds to the immersion. While science and magic play big roles in the film, there is also nature in the mix that is included by the colors. Sure, this is not a vibrant-looking picture, but the palette is very earthy and subdued to reflect upon the life of the animals, with the only color that really pops out is the red of Mrs. Brisby's cape and the stone in the amulet. But then there are the effects, and may I say that this movie goes hard with them. As an animated movie based in nature, it made sure that the environment is as alive as the animals, with all the bubbles, water, debris, and fire giving that extra touch to show what the characters have to face. And if it wants to show how the rats can harness the power of electricity, or that Nicodemus can conduct magic, then the film plays with lights to provide a glow that can feel otherworldly.
Courage of the heart is very rare. The stone has a power when it's there.
The stone.
But along with the world building, the animation is also responsible for making the action scenes feel so intense. This is where the perspective also plays a part, where the dangers of a mouse is now multiplied and feel like monsters in comparison, like the plow or the cat dragon. emphasized by the cinematography and the fast-paced editing to show the life-threatening situations that Mrs. Brisby has to go through. Even when the action is at their size, they could still put you on the edge of your seat, like the climactic battle between Justin and Jenner. While the team was trying to bring back that old Disney magic, they ended up creating something different. Something that tried new tricks to bring its world to life while also presenting some masterful craftsmanship. Disney was able to define the art of animation, but Don Bluth and his crew took the medium to a whole new level. The characters. As much as the world itself made the movie very immersive, it also takes the characters to do their part in order to make the adventure worth experiencing. I don't know what NIMH put in those rats, but they've developed some unforgettable personalities for this picture to contribute to both the story and the world building. Beginning with Mrs. Brisby, I've already discussed about how her role as a mother is the heart of the feature. However, what few may know is that Brisby has a secret of her own. One that holds power even greater than any of the rats of NIMH. And that's nepotism.
Brisby. Mrs. Jonathan Brisby?
Not Mrs. Jonathan Brisby.
Yes, the same.
May I present Mrs. Jonathan Brisby?
Mrs. Jonathan Brisby. What an honor this is.
This woman got very lucky when picking her man because that connection got her the VIP ticket to everything.
He was a great friend to the rats of NIMH. He himself came from NIMH.
But seriously though, Mrs. Brisby is such an admirable figure with the way she's willing to take every risk to help save her sick son Timmy and the rest of her kids, while making sure they don't meet the same fate as her late husband. Even when all the odds seem to be against her, she always keeps her hopes up if there is a way to find a safer place to live from all the farm's obstacles, no matter how crazy sounding they can be. It's her determination and love for her family that motivates her to go on this mission that is treacherous for just about anyone.
I'll do anything to save Timmy. Anything.
There is a way.
As for the characters that are a part of her journey, there's Auntie Shrew, the nanny of the Brisby kids who can be quite snobbishly posh, but like the widow, she looks out for everyone's safety, including Mrs. Brisby.
I couldn't do that. Owls eat mice.
Well, my child, show a little courage. We're fighting for Timmy's life.
There is the Great Owl, a wise yet intimidating bird who points Mrs. Brisby to the direction she needs for her goal that has an imposing performance by John Carradine.
They must move your house to the lee of the stone.
No rat could move my house.
They have ways.
And then you have Jeremy, who my feelings for him are a bit complex. At first glance, he seems like the most out-of-place character of the picture. While everyone else is taking their roles seriously, Jeremy is the comic relief aimed to entertain younger viewers with his clumsy mannerisms, his desperation to find a girl, and his frantic talking by Dom DeLuise. There can be times when his attempts to make the film more lighthearted can get a little annoying. So much so that even Mrs. Brisby can feel like her patience is tested.
Go get all the string you can.
Okay. That'll take all day.
Good. Get going.
And yet, I don't think I can imagine the movie without him. As much as he may be close to getting on my nerves, he does prove to be resourceful. There are moments where he does help Mrs. Brisby to get out of a tough situation or take her where she needs to be. He's a nice guy and is able to do good when he can. It's just that, much like his approach with girls, he just got no game and has yet to understand his full potential.
It is? What? It is? I mean, it is.
As we go into the rosebush to meet the rats of NIMH, Mrs. Brisby is guided by the cranky old family friend, Mr. Ages, and Justin, the good-hearted captain of the guards who is happy to help the widow.
Reveal thy name.
Justin, you featherhead. Get your hands off me.
Okay, just a joke.
The purpose for her to be there is to meet up with the leader of the rats, Nicodemus, who is a bit like the narrator of the film by watching her journey and guide her to the right direction as a way to return the favor for everything that Jonathan did for them. He is also the wisest of the group with the way that he is able to achieve magic and earn his wizardly appearance.
My child, shall we journey to your home?
Sir?
Tonight, we must move your house.
And then there is Jenner, the villain of the feature who opposes the plan for the rats to move to a new sanctuary called Thorn Valley, and seeks to gain power for himself. On one hand, as a villain, I wouldn't say that Jenner is great. He only shows up halfway into the picture, and his motives are the typical wanting to be the new ruler by any means necessary. However, his role is important to the picture to show that even in an advanced society of rats, there will always be opposition who rejects morality and focus more on gaining power in an aggressive way. That, and Paul Shenner delivers a strong performance that presents him as both manipulative and threatening.
Jenner, you can't kill Nicodemus.
No taste for blood, huh? They've taken the animal out of you.
Rather it be to aid Mrs. Brisby along her journey, or to display how the rats were able to form their own society, the characters are what brings this story to life and have enough power to turn this picture into an unforgettable adventure. After creating this film, Don Bluth and his team went on to create more unforgettable animated features. From An American Tail to The Land Before Time to All Dogs Go to Heaven to Anastasia. And as great as those features are, none could ever compare to the masterful work of their first movie. The Secret of NIMH is an animated feature that has every right to be called a masterpiece. Just about every element of this picture is amazingly crafted to present how animation can truly be a storytelling medium. The story is filled with heart, the world building is highly immersive, the score is epic, the animation is jaw-droppingly beautiful, the action is intense, some of the voice acting is powerful, and the characters are unforgettable. For animation fans and movie fans alike, I consider this to be a must-watch. I know I gave this so much praise, but to truly understand what I've been talking about, you have to see this movie for yourself. Even if you already saw it, it's worth watching again to re-experience the magic that only Mrs. Brisby and the Rats of NIMH could create. And if you think this review was worth watching, then hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. There are plenty more masterpieces like this worth discovering, and joining me on the adventure to find them will make it even better. There was never a doubt in my mind. Right when I saw that I was going to review this movie, I knew that I'll be giving this the Animat seal of approval. It's no secret that The Secret of NIMH is what made Don Bluth a legend in animation. Hey guys, this is Animat, and I'm gonna do something a little bit different here, as you can see, because there's actually something that I want to show you. And I can't just use my regular camera, because that thing is just way too hefty. So I'm gonna go with something a little more portable, which in this case is my phone, to go and show you a special little something related to The Secret of NIMH. So if you've been watching my videos and have seen me in front of the camera, then you may have noticed that what's around me is pretty decorated, especially with what's on and around my desk with all these figurines and all the DVDs and Blu-rays. But also, you may have noticed that I also have my walls decorated as well. And don't worry about the lighting. I'll be sure to make sure that it doesn't fully obstruct whatever I want to go and show you. So as you probably can see here, I have my big epic Mickey poster. But alongside that, I also have some animation cells, just part of my collection, including this production cell of Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. I also have here Princess Daphne that I got from the Dragon's Lair movie Kickstarter. But the one that I do want to show you is actually this one right over here. This is a production cell of Nicodemus from The Secret of NIMH. And this is actually very interesting to note when it comes to animation cells, because you would be surprised that production cells for The Secret of NIMH are actually very easy to get, or at least by the standards of animation cells, because generally they would cost around $200 to $300 each, which can be a bit of an investment for some, but again, by the standards of production cells, they are a lot more on the cheaper side. And if you know animation fans who are also collectors of animation cells, then there is a good chance that they would have at least one cell of The Secret of NIMH in their collection. So basically, I just wanted to show you another example of how much I love this movie. In fact, I actually do consider it one of my favorite animated features, and that, yes, I actually do own a piece of The Secret of NIMH. So, on top of this review, which hopefully I have done it justice and to show you how much of a masterpiece that this is, I just wanted to go and spend a little moment to go and present what I actually own from The Secret of NIMH itself. All right, so now that we are done with The Secret of NIMH, it is now time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time around, we shall be looking into one by Russell Ray Young. So, if you would like to be like Russell and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards, including but not limited to seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to request an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so with that said, what is it that Russell went and requested me to look into? Well, in this case, I would say that this is one of the more unusual crossovers that I have seen. Or maybe not necessarily the most, but definitely among one of them. And that's more in terms that you would never think that you would see these two entities somehow come together. Like, yeah, sure, it makes sense that they would somehow team up in the comics, but in an animated feature, or at the very least, actually make an adaptation of that comic, that I feel like is a bit unexpected and out of nowhere. I just gotta say, it feels quite unnatural that you would see the bat and the turtles fight crime together.
Oh, thank you. I will treasure it always.